is a new ref, Sam Barrett, I think his name. And I mean, I don't like to criticise refs. I'm the first to say they have a really tough job. Let's face it. But
Yeah.
he dropped some clangers, and it just shows how poor refereeing can possibly affect the outcome of a lot of games. We saw that last season, but this time Palace had a free kick out on the right, within range of the goal,
Yeah.
but he was quite far out on the right, and Eze was going to take it. Now, there was the usual huddle of players on the edge of the penalty area or thereabouts, and the ref blows the whistle, and then he's not watching Eze, who came up, kicked the ball, brilliant free kick, because didn't waste time with all the players along the edge of the area. He aimed straight for the goal where he saw the gap, and the
Yeah.
goalie was over the far side. It hit the inside of the near post and smacked into the net.
Yeah.
But and it would have been possibly not a goal of the season, but it was a brilliant goal.
Yeah.
But the ref chose not even to watch him kicking it. He saw a kerfuffle with the players. He blew the whistle just before the ball went in the net. So it couldn't be looked at by VAR because it was technically dead at that
Oh,
point.
right.
And
Yeah.
what he said that two players were fouled by a Palace player, Hughes. Now, I was watching in real time and must say my Kimberly and Paul were there, and they saw the same thing. You could see Hughes was not fouled. In fact, if there was any foul at all, which is doubtful, it was by these two players pulling back Hughes. But the ref, stupidly, focusing, and I think the refs are going to focus on these argy barges in the penalty area at corners and things. Well, that's fair enough. I always think instead of delaying the corner when the ref says wait and he goes over and talks to them, I think stupid. If you see a foul, just blow the whistle. If it's a
Yeah.
penalty, it's a penalty. But now they're going to be a bit tougher. But that doesn't give him a reason for not even watching the kick
Yeah.
and making a complete mistake. And indeed, at half time, I think the pundits, Jamie Redknapp again and Micah Richards, both said that the ref had made a really bad mistake, and it was quite evident. So that cost Palace a goal. And of course, 2 or 3 minutes later, what happened? Brentford go out the other end and score. Now, we don't know what would have happened, but even Palace's another goal in the second half, which was denied
Yeah.
because of offside. In fact, there's a photograph of it published. I think it's been on X and things, and you can clearly see that the Palace player's foot is just behind the ball, so it doesn't look as if it's offside either. So that may be more arguable, but it looks like Palace were wrongly denied two goals. So that was again, poor refereeing can affect the outcome of games. We don't know if Palace would have won, but they were doing pretty well in that first half. But the other thing I would like to say about it, and I think it's relevant for us to talk about it,
Yeah.
for me to say this, I'm all for, you go to a football match and you get searched, shall we say, home supporters not quite so much, but you still have to put your arms up and they use their wand thing to make sure you've got nothing, explosive or nothing metal you're carrying around, and everybody accepts that.
Yeah.
Some grounds, when I go to away games occasionally, they have sniffer dogs
Yeah.
for drugs presumably and anything else. So it's perfectly understandable, and it's good that there is good security, but by all accounts, um, what happened at Brentford to the away fans sounds really, really poor stuff. And I won't go into too much detail, but in fact, Paul, my son, he does a podcast about Palace, the Palace match, the evening afterwards, and he did it, I think, on Monday evening. And I was watching that, and there were three others who were there, people I know well, including
Mm.
one woman, and she was with Kimberly at the time, and so on. But the searching got ridiculous. And
Right.
basically, I mean, Paul was talking about it on his podcast, and he said, like I've just said, he's all for being good security, being searched, and so on. He said, but this was a whole new level. He
Yeah.
said, this chap, he said, Paul had shorts on, as a lot of people, men do at the moment in this weather. I do.
Yeah.
And he said, this chap had shorts on, as a lot of men do at the moment in this weather. I do.
Yeah.
And he said this chap, his hands were going all up and down, even his skin, and he was really annoying some of the fans. And Paul said, "Well, what could I be hiding inside my skin?" Sort of thing. It was ridiculous. It was completely over the top. And then, you believe this or not, but it's true. He put his hand in Paul's pocket, took out his wallet, and Paul said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we got to check for drugs." And he said, "Well," and then the guy opened his wallet and was going through what he had in his wallet. And Paul said it was incredible. But then he saw Kimberly being, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but
Pat it down.
by,
Pat it
yeah,
down.
but patted down and all
Yeah.
that by a woman. And he said, I got really angry. He said, I've never seen a pat down so intimate.
Yeah.
And Yasmin, who was with Kimberly, the lady who was on the podcast as well, she said, "Well, I can't really describe where the woman's hands were going."
Yeah.
And she said she then took my out of my bag. She took my purse and opened my purse. And I said, "What are you doing? That's my purse. That's." And I said, "Oh, we got to do it." Said the same thing about drugs. And then she took another little bag out, which from what Yasmin said was her feminine stuff, and we all know
Yeah.
what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Yasmin dragged it back and said, "You're not opening that in front of all these football fans."
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the nature of all this. And I said to them, I said, if I'd been there, I said I wouldn't have been allowed in, because
Yeah.
if you objected,
Yeah.
they say, well, you can't come in, or I guess they call the policeman over or something like that.
Yeah.
But they said, Paul and the others and Kimberly, they've been going to these games for a long time, and they've never experienced anything like it. Anyway,
Oh,
the questions have now been raised, emails written to the board at Brentford, to the owners, and to Palace. And it's going to be interesting, because they've also discovered that this happened to a lot of away fans last season, but not to the Palace
oh,
fans. So it's obviously been tightened up, and no one minds that. But to be opening up people's wallets and
yeah.
purses, not to mention, the pat down in as a kind of an intimate thing, which it never should
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
is just a worrying development. And I don't know whether that's something that we're going to see at a lot of grounds this season,
Wow.
possibly not, or whether it's just Brentford. But because of course they have sniffer dogs. I don't know whether they have them at
Yeah.
Brentford, but you would think that would be enough if they're looking for drugs.
Yeah.
But anyway, I raise that because it's to me, a very serious matter.
Mm.
It sounds to me, I said this, it sounds to me almost like a form of physical assault
Yeah.
on people to be doing it like that. So yeah, I think they need to be a bit careful. So it'd be interesting to see what may come out of all of that.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd mention that in our podcast today.
Yeah.
But if I may come in,
Yes, please.
Trevor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think on the part of security is unprofessional. One,
Right.
because I'm in the security industry, obviously.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm at work, I see some of my security searching, you know. And I said, do you think you've done a proper search? No. Some don't do proper search and some overdo it. Because if that was me as security, you're wearing shorts. I can see everything.
Yeah.
Just like you said, you can't be hiding anything under your skin.
No.
And even if you're searching for drugs, you want to make sure you get people who come in with drugs. And somebody's got a wallet. Two things. You got to tell them. Put everything down on the table. Empty your bag. Or is either you open it, bring it, let me go through it, and just take it out one by one and say, okay, what's that? Can you take that out? What's that? Can you take that?
Mm.
But you going in somebody else's